Hey everybody, and welcome back to another new and noteworthy mod review. Today we're going to take a look at a much beloved mod from Farm Sim 19 that has made its way finally into Farm Sim 22. That is guidance steering, or often referred to as GPS. But before that, this video is brought to you by City Flyer. Thank you for being a farm baron. So it's taken a few weeks, but we finally have guidance steering brought forward into Farm Sim 22, or as I said in the intro, more affectionately known as GPS. And many of its features are identical to how they were Farm Sim 19. So if you're a long-time Farm Sim 19 player and have used GPS, aka guidance steering, well then you are pretty much up to speed already on what to expect. But I do know that there are a fair bit of new players that are coming to the game with Farm Sim 22. So this video is primarily for you, the new player, or someone that maybe didn't get into guidance steering, GPS, in FS19, and now maybe you're a little bit curious about it. So let's go ahead and kind of break it down. So what we see here with the white and blue lines is our lane selection, if you will. Now that we have a green line in the middle, it means that we have engaged our guidance steering. And at this point, the vehicle and this harvester is going to basically keep between the lines and maintain a straight and steady course down the field. I can do whatever I want. I don't have to use my wheel. I don't have to steer left or right with the keyboard or the controller. It is now locked, engaged, and will go due north, due south, east, west, whatever direction you set it up at. Now this is a script-based mod. This was a PC-only mod. So we'll get that out of the way fairly early. And this mod needs to be configured on all your vehicles that you want to use it on. Okay, it's not a standard thing where you activate it and then suddenly every vehicle can make use of it. You do need to select it in the shop. So let's take a look at that. Let's just go to a random tractor. Fendt 900 Vario Black Beauty. We now have a new configuration option. GPS, no or yes. If we toggle it to yes, it is a $15,000 item per vehicle. Okay, so it's something you may or may not add willy-nilly to every single vehicle that you own. So just be aware of that. Any vehicles that you already own, when you activate this mod, you will need to go to your workshop trigger and reconfigure to add GPS to it, should you so wish to use guidance steering on that particular vehicle. Things that you have leased, you cannot modify, so you cannot customize a leased vehicle. So therefore, you're going to have to return the vehicle and configure the new vehicle with GPS as part of the configuration when you lease it in order to use guidance steering on a leased vehicle. Now, once you have guidance steering activated on your vehicle, well, how do you use it? Very valid question. And that is what we are about to demonstrate right here. Let me just get lined up. So in essence, we now have this particular tractor or harvester set up exactly how it would be when you first purchase it with guidance steering. Guidance steering is turned off. You can see the lines no longer appear. What we need to do is we need to first enable guidance steering by doing left alt C. Now you'll see a line show up. Okay? That's how we kind of know that it's been enabled. Then we do left control S. And that's going to bring up the guidance steering graphical user interface. From here we have some options. We can show lines on or off. Okay. You may be in a position in your gameplay where you just don't want to see the lines anymore, so you can turn them off. We're going to leave them on for this particular demonstration. Line offset. This is how far away from the ground the lines are. So you can increase this or decrease it. Put it, say, 2.5. You see the line is much higher, and therefore it's going to be a lot easier to see. We come in here and we change it to 0.25. Now the line is much lower to the ground. So depending on what you're doing, you may or may not wish to have that increased or decreased. Snap to terrain angle is going to be something very important for lots of folks. When it is turned on, what it means is it's going to try to line you up in mostly cardinal directions. North, south, east, west, and now with Farm Sim 19, kind of northwest, southeast, southwest, northeast, etc. So, for example, here I'm off by a wee little bit, right? If I were to lock in on a course right now, it is going to want to steer me back to be due north. If I have the snap to terrain angle turned off, it is going to very much let me set a 10-degree angled course. So you might want to turn that on or off depending on the lay of the field and how you're trying to maybe follow the lay of the field or the field edge. Offset reversal. I don't do offsets very good. So offset reversal is if you're using something that has a offset, requires an offset, maybe a side mower, maybe a plow. When you get to the end of the row, if you have this turned on, then when you turn around and come back the other direction, the guidance path is going to reverse the offset. So in theory, you're back on the lane you need to be on. All honesty, offsets confuse me, so I don't use offsets. I've not used offset reversal in my FS19 gameplay, but that is, in theory, what that's for. Headland mode. If it's turned on, then this distance takes effect. What this means is when it gets to the end of the row, it's going to detect that it's at the end of the field, and it's going to automatically stop your vehicle that many meters from the edge of the field. So you can set it to 1 meter, and you can tell it to stop, so that the vehicle would stop when it gets to the end of the field 1 meter away. You could set this to 10 if you wanted. If you set this to off, the vehicle's just going to keep on going. Irregardless of the fact that it's at the end of the field or not, it's just going to keep on going. Now, over here, we have auto width. We have plus, minus, reset, width increment. What this does is, right now we have an 8.5 meter header. Typically, when you hook this up to a vehicle or an implement, your vehicle with GPS enabled, when you hook it up to an implement, one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to do auto width. And it's supposed to detect the width, the working width of what you have attached. It's rather ironic that it's detecting this header at 12 meters when clearly it is not. If we look at it in the shop, we're going to go to our headers. We are making use of this header right here, which is 8.5 meters. So a 12 meter auto width is incorrect. So I need to adjust that. Well, how do I do that? We come here to the width increment, and we can change this in various increments. And I can click the minus and increment down till I'm at 8.5. And there we go. Increment offset. Sometimes you attach to an implement, and it will have a small offset associated with it. Like, let's say an offset of 0.1 meters. Well, you might know that that's incorrect. So what you can do is you can basically say, reset that back to 0. Okay? Now let's just set up an offset. What's the next thing you need to know? Well, here, let's look at this red line. See the red line? That is the increment offset, the implement offset. But again, we don't want that. We're going to zero that out. You'll see the red line now is gone. The next thing you need to know is how do you set your lanes? There's two methods. There's the A-B method, and then there's the A+heading method. It's going to default to the A+B method. And the way you use this is pretty straightforward. You're going to get lined up to where you want to be. Typically, you would do this maybe at the field edge, and then you would hit Alt-E. That's going to clear out any existing headings. Okay? So we've hit Alt-E once. We're going to hit Alt-E again. And now you see a little A appear. That is our A point. At this point, we're going to turn on our vehicle. We're going to drive forward 15 meters. We are manually driving, remember, at this point. So we want to be fairly on our heading. And once we've driven about 15 meters, we're going to hit Alt-E again. And now we have set our B point. And now we have blue lines on either side of our header. This is also how we can tell if our header auto detect width is correct or not. We're still not engaged, okay? So we're still kind of manually driving here. So if I come here and I can increment this up back to 12, I can't see our blue lines because they're down below the crop, right? Well, let's raise them up. Now we see our blue lines, but clearly, very clearly, that is not the header width. So, like I said, we know it's 8.5. So we're going to increment this back down to 8.5. Now, once we are ready to go, ready to engage, Alt-X, you hear the sound, the white line becomes red or green, and now we are engaged. Guidance steering, aka GPS, is going to keep our vehicle straight. That is the basics. I know it's a lot to take in at the start, but real quick summary. When you first buy a vehicle, you need to engage GPS. You need to turn it on. To do that, it's left Alt-C. Then you'll be able to go to the GPS graphical user interface, which is left Control S. Okay? Why is it not left Alt-S? Well, back in Farm Sim 19, there was a mod called Seasons. And Seasons came out before guidance steering. And the command to get into the Seasons graphical interface was Alt-S. So guidance steering had to basically be Control S. Once you have set your working width, then you can hit Alt-E once to clear out the path. Let's do that. Let's pretend this width and this path, it was no longer desired. Alt-E clears it. Now you see the blue lines are gone. Alt-E again sets your A point. We start driving. We need to go 15 meters. If we don't, we're going to get a prompt that's telling us you haven't traveled 15 meters yet. We hit Alt-E once we have traveled 15 meters. And now we look at our header width, our lines. We look like it's good. Alt-X to engage. And now we have engaged our guidance steering. That is with the A and B method. Now, if we come in here and change our method to A+heading, we're going to hit Alt-E to clear that out. A+heading is maybe a bit more simplified. It requires you to set one point and one point alone, and also it expects you to already be positioned and pointed in the direction you want to go. So with A+heading, we hit Alt-E once to clear the course that may already exist. Alt-E again. Desired cardinal degrees, 0. And now we're good to go. We're setting one point it's going to base our center on that point. We're going to enter the degrees, and off we go. So that is A+ heading. There's a few other options here. This one is quite interesting and handy. It allows you to rotate the heading exactly 90 degrees. So right now we're going north-south. I can click this once, and now the heading is set for us to go east-west. Same working width. We've just rotated the whole course 90 degrees. And now we're going east-west. Just like that. Other options. There are some ways to change your working width, increase the width, decrease the width, shift the track left and right, and various other things with keyboard shortcuts. I showed you how to already do all of those things with the graphical user interface. But if you're so inclined, you can also do most of those things with a key binding with your keyboard. Or if you have a controller, a side panel, you can set your side panel or controller key bindings to do these things also. So left Alt R is basically auto width. It's the same as going into here and saying auto width. Left Alt R. Left Alt plus and minus will increment the working width up and down by a pre-configured amount. That pre-configured amount is right here. So left Alt minus, we can get back down to 8.5. Shift track is left Alt, page up, and page down. Left Alt Shift will allow us to speed it up a little bit. Page down, we're going to bring it back. Maybe you're working multiple fields and you're going to use the exact same machinery, the exact same course, but when you line up on the field, it's just a little bit off. And you'd rather not just go through the whole effort of doing the A-B thing again. We can do left Alt, page up and page down to basically skew it a little bit and make it work how you need it to work for that particular field. There's another option that's basically snap to the vehicle, which is rather interesting. So let's say this is the field edge, and I don't want to set a whole course. I just want to set the center line right here. Well, left Alt, home. So it's not going to reflect until you move, and then you're going to see that snap. Just like that. Then we can engage it. Left Alt X. Now, there's one more thing that I want to show you, and that is you have the ability to save courses. This can be really handy in multiplayer, specifically because there really isn't a way to share a course. And if you are, let's say, in multiplayer and you have a big field and you have multiple harvesters, for example, in that big field, one person can set the course, they can save it, the other person can load that course, and then basically they have the same course activated for the field. So to do that, we need to go to our graphical user interface. We're going to go to this setting here, and we're going to have our plus, edit, delete, and then a file name. So we can come up here and we can call this 8.5 meter harvest. Okay? And we hit plus. It's now been saved. We have options here: save, track to farm, off, or on. What this is this is in effect for multiplayer. If you have it set to on, then the courses you save will only be available on vehicles owned by that given farm. The default is set to off, which means that everyone on the server will have access to the course. When you don't want the course anymore, you can just hit delete. It goes away. So let's add it. Now let's say we're going to change this to a 9.5 meters. So let's go here and let's increase this up to 9.5. We're going to change this. We're going to select it. We're going to come up here. We're going to rename it to 9.5. We're going to hit that button, and it's now been renamed. So let's say we want to recall a course. We want to activate a course. You'll see right now I have no blue lines. That means I have no course activated. Alt S. So this is post-edit Farmer Klein coming to you, and I have figured out the issue I was having with respect to loading saved courses. Apparently with this version of guidance steering, you have to have at least 2 saved courses in order to be able to load a saved course. Now, once you have 2 saved courses, to simply load a course, you go to this particular screen, double-click on the course you want to load, and then it will load up and you'll be ready to go. But if you don't have 2 courses, as of version 2.0.1, you won't be able to load up a saved course. Now, I'm sure it won't be very hard for players to really figure out ways to use this type of steering aid. One way that I enjoy using it is with respect to being able to do lane management, and specifically to be able to skip rows. So when you get to the end of the field, for example, and you got to turn around, well, oftentimes you can't just turn around and come right back down the next lane without stopping and making like a 3-point, 4-point turn. Well, with guidance steering and lane management, basically, you have the ability to skip rows. So when I get to the end of this field, I can turn to the right, in essence, skip a lane, and come back down a completely different lane. And then I could work my way, and I often do this, I could work my way all the way across the field, skipping a lane. So in essence, when you look at the field, it's striped. Then when I get to the end of the lane, or the end of the field, I can turn around and come back up the first lane that's not harvested, skipping a lane, thus skipping every lane that I already had harvested, and come back across the field. And that ends up being faster than going up and down, up and down, up and down, and having to do a long 3-point turn. Another interesting way you could use this, for those that hadn't thought about it, is let's say you're doing field work. Or let's say you're harvesting and you're leaving a straw windrow. You have an 8.5 meter width here. So I'm leaving a windrow every 8.5 meters on center, right? I could take my tractor where I'm using a baler or a forage wagon, and I could set its course to be 8.5 meters. I can line it up on the center of the first windrow. I can lock in that course, and as I work my way across the field, I should be lined up on every single windrow at 8.5 meters because I have the same working width. The same thing can be done with respect to grass or hay. If you're doing a windrower, you could windrow, and let's say your windrower is 13 meters. Well, you could set your baler to have a working width of 13 meters and center it on that first windrow And for the most part, you should be pretty much good to go to work your way across the field at 13-meter widths, because that is what your windrower did. So guys, I hope this helped you out with guidance steering, aka GPS. I know there's a lot going on. I know there's a lot of buttons to remember, but once you start using it, you're going to get more comfortable with it. It's going to make more sense to you. Sometimes it does have a little bit of a steep learning curve. If you come back to the video every so often and kind of refresh yourself if you haven't used it for a while as to what is going on. I know initially it can be quite a shock to have $15,000 on every single vehicle, but you don't need to put it on every single vehicle. Put it on the vehicles that you're going to do your field work most common with, and you can leave it off of other things like trucks and yard tractors. So until next time, happy farming.